Do you want to support this podcast and earn 4.5 PDUs toward your PMI certification? If so, you can go to projectmanagementforyou.com. Again, projectmanagementforyou.com, where you can get my book, Project Management for You, How to Turn Your Ideas into Reality, Deliver on Your Promises, and Get Things Done for just $5.99. This includes the audiobook and the ebook versions of the book. So if you like podcasts, if you're listening to this right now in your car, it's a great opportunity. You can just listen to the book in audio format and earn the 4.5 PDUs. This is for less than $6, and this is Canadian dollars. So, depending on the conversion rate for you, it's even less than that. So if you are a PMP and read or listen to this book, you can also claim 4.5 PDUs towards your certification. To buy it and help support this podcast, go to projectmanagementforyou.com. Again, projectmanagementforyou.com. If you enjoyed this show, this is the best way you can support it. Thank you.
Project managers, have you ever felt like you should get that promotion or a better job? Start a business, write that book. Have you ever felt you were made for more but didn't know where to start?
Welcome to the PM for the Masses podcast with your host, Cesar Abeid.
Learn from the experts, think outside the box, have a voice, network, and be extraordinary.
PM for the Masses podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome once again. My name is Cesar Abeid, your host, and this show is your weekly reminder, or weekly. It's not weekly anymore. It's more like a regular reminder that your career matters more than your job and that your life is a project and you are the manager. Whether you work for a company or for yourself, your job stability is really just your ability to land your next gig. So, join me in practicing intentional, planned, and value-adding relevance, starting right now. So today I have Megan Marcel. She's an event planning extraordinaire and also my coworker to talk about managing large corporate events successfully. So let's get started. Megan Marcel manages global events and sponsorships for Automattic, the company behind WordPress.com, Jetpack, and WooCommerce. It's also the company that I work for. And if you've ever been to pmforthemasses.com, that is a WordPress website. So from brand campaigns and trade shows to company-wide meetups and experiential marketing activations, Megan works to create in real-life experiences that connect attendees with Automattic's products and teams. Prior to joining the Automattic team, Megan managed events for Time, Fortune, Money, the Event Studio, and Canon. When she's not working, you can find Megan traveling, enjoying time on the water, or cooking. And Megan is on the line with me today from her hotel room in St. Louis, Missouri. Welcome, Megan.
Hi.
Thanks for taking the time. I know you are you are participating, you're helping manage an event right now, aren't you?
Yeah, so we are here at WordCamp US for their flagship event in the US, and Automattic has a sponsorship with Jetpack and WooCommerce. So we're here representing those brands and, just meeting with the community to talk about it.
Okay. For those outside of the WordPress ecosystem, what is a WordCamp?
Yeah, so WordCamps are community events for the entire WordPress community. They're all around the world, and Jetpack and Woo are sponsors of it. So it's a really good way just to get in front of the WordPress community and educate, the community members, and then likewise us getting feedback from them. So it's a really, really awesome way to get involved in the community, and you can do it in your local town. So.
Yeah, so I recommend you go. I think it's WordCamp.com, WordCamp.com, or is it WordPress.org/WordCamp? I forget. But I'll have a link to the WordCamp's website on the show notes for today's episode, which, by the way, it's pmforthemasses.com/123 for episode 123. Megan, so I decided to invite you to come and talk to us about what you do, because I've seen your work closely. You organize this yearly, among other things, but our yearly company meetup, which is getting bigger and bigger every year. And I'll let you fill in the gaps here, explain why we do that. But what I've seen over the years is like how you manage this large event with excellence. And it's very seamless for everybody involved. Everybody feels welcome. Things work, and everybody has a smile on their face. And we go home, and you start planning already for the next year. So I just wanted to get in your head and your team inside your team's head, because this is basically project management, and that's what we talk about here on this podcast. And I just wanted to see from your perspective how you approach this, and some of your tips for making something like this successful. So can you give us a little bit of a background on Automattic, the company that you work for, and the importance of this yearly grand meetup that we do?
Yeah, so Automattic, we are the company behind WordPress.com, WooCommerce, Jetpack, now Tumblr, and several other products. And we are a distributed company, so we're over 1,000 employees now in over 70 countries, and everyone works from home all around the world, no matter where you live. And so the grand meetup, as we call it, is the one time a year that everyone within the company gets together for a week of just team building, learning, strategy, projects, etc. And it's really incredible. This year we had 808 attendees, all employees from around the world, together for a week in person, which is really unique for the company being as we're distributed. So it's the only time of year that happens.
Right. And I'd say most people in the company look forward to it. It's usually pretty special. There's always some little surprises and Easter eggs and special swag that we get, and gifts and opportunity to, as you said, to connect with people outside of your own silo within the company. All right. So basically we come together for a week, and it's over 800 people. And I'm assuming, since the Tumblr acquisition, I don't know if Tumblr is going to join us for next year, but it is likely going to be more than 1,000 people next year. Yeah, so it keeps growing. So what are some of the non-negotiable important deliverables for this project, for this event, that we must have every year?
Mm-hmm. I would say that one is obviously a venue that can accommodate us. We stay in one hotel property. So just the size of it, and we want to be in a property that, still feels intimate for us, but is big enough to fit us. So that's something that is a non-negotiable and something that we work pretty far in advance to secure. And that being said, we also want a hotel partner who's truly an extension of our team, because, we're with them on site for an entire week, and we are working with the hotel on absolutely everything from sleeping rooms to meeting rooms to the AV that we're having to the food and beverage. So all of our meals, and all the little things in between, creative, and it becomes our headquarters, which we don't have all the rest of the year. So having a hotel partner that is able to work with us on all of those elements pretty seamlessly and have a good understanding of our team and making sure that everyone feels included. And it's really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
I would also say, just the entire programming and schedule. And so really honing that in and working with people across the company. So just making sure that we have a group in place that's willing to work together well, work on some fairly tight deadlines sometimes, and just be able to, we say we don't say no. We make things happen. Things come up last minute. So having a team that is on board to do that and sometimes make the impossible happen, or at least a really close alternative to what's being requested. So
Can you give us an example of some of those things that were requested and we had to kind of bend over backwards to make it happen?
Yeah. So, I mean, everything is like one little change becomes a spiral effect,
Right.
I would say. So like one thing that came up this year, actually, so we had our meetup in Orlando, and it was right around the time of a hurricane. So all of our shipments got stuck and they couldn't get shipped to us, and they were coming from all different places. You touched upon it, like we get special swag for the Grand Meetup. And so all of that was stuck, and it couldn't get to Orlando. And so figuring out solutions for that and adjusting the schedule to make sure that we can, have that at a later date, and making sure that the shipping team was, able to shift around the delivery schedule and the hotel was able to accept it. And we need forklifts to get that stuff in, because when it's 1,000 items, we're working with pallets. And so really just all of that, and knowing that one little thing has such impact, and it really is a domino effect. So being able to deal with that on the ground, and just try to do it with grace and
Right.
not affect the experience in a negative way for anyone that is joining us. Yeah.
Yeah, and you do that really well. I remember, I think it was last year that I needed to, like, it was something ad hoc. Me and the other team leads from support, we realized we should have a breakfast together.
Yeah.
We probably need a room somewhere. So I just, using Slack, I connected to somebody on the team and say, hey, I know it's kind of last minute, but maybe tomorrow, do you think there's a room somewhere we can use? And I think it was within 10 minutes, there was a reply saying, yeah, you can use room X. And by the way, we're going to bring breakfast to you there. So we showed up the next day. The room was all set up. There was a breakfast buffet there, and people helping us get food. And I was like, wow, that was really impressive, considering how many people are here and all the other things that are going on at the same time.
Yeah, so it's funny, the hotel, we wound up using, I think, 90 plus breakout rooms in the hotel, and they did not have that many. So we used a lot of guest rooms and random nooks and crannies of the hotel. And so, just touching on actually keeping track of all of that, we're using a massive Google spreadsheet. And we have it by room and by day and by time. And we try to fit things in. It's definitely a puzzle and a moving puzzle throughout the entire week. But being able to use that, we're able to just really quickly go on and look at a room, the capacity of it, what maybe the setup was previously, where it is in relation to everything else, and slot that in. So as you mentioned, the breakfast there, it was like, okay, well, logistically, that was a lot easier for the hotel to bring breakfast to you than you all, going down a level and across the hotel and bringing plates of food. And if you forgot something, having to run all the way back, and that take from the meeting and the short amount of time that you do have together. So we try to think about all those little pieces to make sure it's seamless for everyone.
Amazing. Yeah, I was really impressed. Now, how hard is it to find a venue that can? I don't think people realize. It's let's say it's about 1,000 people, and we need to be one of the requirements, and we need to be in the same hotel. How hard is it? Is there a lot of places around the world that can host an event like that for a whole week, or how hard is that to find a place like Orlando?
Yeah, so it's difficult. And some of the reasons why it's difficult is because we try to have the event in the same place 2 years in a row. So this way it's a little easier when you're doing the planning again for the following year. You already have these relationships built. And so it's difficult to find a hotel property that has the length of stay that we need, that doesn't interfere with any worldwide holidays within a certain couple month time frame, and somewhat close to an airport that makes it relatively easy for anyone around the world to get to. So an international airport hub. Some other things that we look at, of course, are, severe weather and ease of getting there, and all of those things. So it's definitely not an easy feat. And we just work through an RFP process. So we put together everything that we need. One other challenge that we tend to have is the amount of meeting space, because we do team day. So every team, regardless of the size, they're probably requesting rooms for that, amongst other things like evening activities. So the number of rooms is definitely a challenge. But once we send out the RFP, we'll get off the bat some properties that come back with a hard no, because they just can't do it. Over the 2 years, people are booking out really far in advance for events these sizes, especially a lot of associations are booking into like 2027. So it definitely takes some things off the table. And then, once we narrow it down, we always say like the world is our oyster, but once you start putting in all these different elements, it quickly narrows down to a few that might work. And then we just really start, looking at them. We go visit the space. We, get a sense of the team on site. As I mentioned, it's super important that we have a team that's like really an extension of ours. And how does the city work? What else is around? And then we, look at the numbers.
Right.
That's kind of our process. And we're actually already starting to look into 2021 and 2022 GM locations to give you an idea of how far in advance we're planning.
Mm-hmm. Any spoilers?
Not yet,
Not
but
yet.
hopefully soon we'll
Okay.
have some. But yeah, not yet. We're still in the very early stages.
Okay,
but
that's
we're working on it.
great. Now, this is sounds like a massive undertaking. Like, is there like anything else that goes into the planning process that we haven't covered?
So obviously we have the venue and finding the location and working with the caterers and things like that. A couple of important things that come up every year are, one, our creative. So we work really closely with the creative team, and we want to make sure that we're able to incorporate our culture and just overall the ethos of Automattic into the space and everything that you're seeing and touching throughout the week. At this year's Scram Meetup, we incorporated the company creed into it. We had it in big ways with banners, and then little ways like the creed on the hotel key, or some signage built into the mirrors in a fun way. So small touches that you might not think of and you notice, and it makes a pretty big impact in your experience there. I would say making sure that people feel comfortable during the week. And when I say that, we work with a lot of introverts at the company, and it can be overwhelming to be together for an entire week. So finding little ways to make that easier for people. So we have dinners that are assigned. So we work with some developers who help us get those assignments done at random based on people you've never met before. And we do these table talk cards to help guide conversation, because, it's hard to show up to a table of a bunch of strangers and have a conversation for a full hour. Small touches like pins with belonging pins, we call them, with talking points and ways that people can see some similarities. So it might say left-handed or twin or a PC user or whatever that might be. So just trying to incorporate little touches that help people have a better week. A meditation room for when you just really need a minute and you don't want to go to your room. So building all of that in there. And then another thing I would say is just actually getting people there. So we use Agencia for people to book their flights. This way we can keep track of what the spend is and make sure that people are going to the right airport. We've definitely had that before, where someone sends a flight through for approval and it's the wrong airport code or something like that, or maybe it's a day off. So getting everyone there, and that's not just flights, but then also ground transportation, moving 800 plus people from the airport to the hotel. So there's lots that go into it. And then I guess lastly, the scheduling and making sure that we're bringing in programming both externally and internally for people to learn from each other and outside of the company to get new perspective and ideas and new ways of thinking.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that go in the programming schedule? I know we have keynotes, and what else for people who are not familiar?
Yeah, so we started off with a kickoff from our CEO, and then we from there go into a division and team time. So divisions will get together with their division head to talk strategy and the direction of the team for the rest of the year. Then the smaller teams will break out into meetings. Then we have keynotes, so external speakers that we bring in. We also do some classes during the week. So whether it's internal people teaching those or external, we did a combination of both. People were able to select 3 courses during the week, so broken out into like 90-minute sessions. So learning really anything from 0 to JavaScript to learning how to be a better participant in the WordPress community, to meditation and breathing classes. So really just, taking on all of that to have a really well-rounded program, soft and hard skills. Then we also have one-on-one meetings, so an opportunity for people to meet with leadership. That's important for folks. And then we have some project time. So we have people throughout the year submit ideas for products, whether internal tools or customer-facing features. And so people will choose that and they'll work on it for the days over the courses. And then we also have all of the meals. So we do some offsite stuff. This past year, we rented out Marvel to do a dinner there and to get offsite and get to experience a bit of Orlando and the city that we were in. And then lastly, evening activities. So people are able to, sign up and do these activities, whether it's video games, to a silent disco, to, I don't know, ping pong tournament. It can be really just about anything. So yeah, and lastly, some like breakfasts and things like that, like you had mentioned, team leads or, division leads getting together the one time a year that they are in person to have those high level conversations with each other. So fitting those smaller meetings within the overall schedule, so it doesn't overlap with any other programming that we're doing.
Yeah, it's amazing when you list it all up like that. It's it's a lot. For you and I, this kind of makes sense because we've been with the company for a few years. But for folks listening right now, they're probably thinking, "My goodness, this is expensive." So now we don't have like a central headquarters, so we don't have that real estate that we pay for and rent and utilities and all that. But would you say that that's some of the money that we would spend on having a big central office in Silicon Valley is basically being redirected to this event?
Yeah, I would say so. And I will say, it sounds expensive when we're talking about it, and it's definitely not a cheap event to put on, but it's important to our culture. But I will also say we try to be as frugal about it as we possibly can be. And like I said, when we RFP it out, we go in with pretty considerable concessions that the hotel will grant us. And we are using, when we're looking at room setups, like how can we eliminate the amount of turnover we need so that in turn saves on the amount of labor that we have to pay for. Any of the programming that we're doing internally, yes, it takes up people's time, but in monetary value, we try to do as much of that as we can in like an ad hoc way. But yeah, definitely having no headquarters throughout the year, this being one of the only times people are traveling to be together like this in this way, it is definitely helps us that we don't have like a hard overhead cost the rest of the year.
Right. Cool. Now, what are some of you touched a little bit on that, regarding to weather, but what are some of the other risks involved, and do you plan ahead for them? And how do you handle when the risks become reality?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like some examples. To date, we've been pretty lucky. I'm not going to lie. We think about so many different things. We work really closely with legal on our contracts and put clauses into place that protect us in case of, anything in the location, or, if flights are canceled and, a certain percentage of people can't get to the meetup, or if there's unrest in the area for some reason. When we're on site, if something happens to an employee, we work really closely with legal and HR and all of that. And, there's always things and events that are unexpected that come up. So just really trying to, be in touch with the right people and have these relationships ahead of time. So this way, if something, God forbid, did happen when we were there, we could deal with it and be connected with the right people to do so. So, for example, right before the GM this year, we got on the call, and we do it every year with the security team, and just really having that point person and being able to know the right person to go to if something does come up. And, we try to prepare as best we can, but we can't prepare for everything. Some things maybe we're not thinking of that might come up and then they do. So just being able to react to that well and quickly and efficiently is really important. And when we get on site at the hotel, we do a pre-con, which is when the main contacts from around the hotel, it's probably 30 people from every single department that we meet with, and we get face-to-face contact. So those are just some ways that we do it. And, having our team, the event team, all just really on the same page and having point people for specific things. So this way we could deal with them when they come up.
Cool. Now, how big is your team?
So the internal event team is 5 of us. Then we use a couple of contractors that work on this full time. So 2 contractors full time. And then the team just keeps expanding out from that. We work really closely, like I said, with legal, with HR on a daily basis. We work with the accounting team on getting invoices paid for our vendors. And then our vendors and external folks we're using on the ground. So we have an entire team of local staff that help us with the ground transportation, and some of those folks will help us with registration. So the core team is about 7, but then it just goes on from there.
Right.
Exponentially.
Yeah. And there's also, volunteers within the company that will help with this and that. Remember Richard and the buses, and I don't know if he helped this year because I didn't take the bus this year, but I remember him wrangling some, and he's not part of your team, right? He's
So he's a happiness engineer who helped. He didn't help this year or the past year, but the year before that or last year in Whistler, so 2 years ago, he was helping wrangle that. People will help wrangle those classes that I had mentioned. So several people doing that and teaching those classes. The creative team is working on it. And so my real role during this is I work on some of the details, but also just overseeing all of these moving parts and people to make it all kind of come together well. And so this way people aren't duplicating efforts in any area and just keeping things on task.
Perfect. Yeah, one thing I was going to mention to those listening, like last year, not this year, but the year before, I actually daily blogged while I was at the Grand Meetup in Orlando. So I'm going to add a link to those posts if people are interested what that looks like from the perspective of an employee during that week. So you can find that again at pmforthemasses.com/123. Megan, what are some of the milestones as you plan? Like, let's see, right now you're planning for 2020, which is going to be in September, October timeframe. Between now and then, between now and the kickoff, what are some of the milestones that, we have like strict deadlines for certain things, booking the hotel, for example?
Yep. So the first is, as you said, booking the hotel. So we did that. With that comes different times when we're able to release rooms. So just keeping a pulse on the growth of the company and seeing if we need to add or release any guest rooms. So this way we don't have to pay for rooms that we're not going to use or not have rooms that we do need. So keeping an eye on that, set to very specific times that we have the opportunity to make changes to that. Locking in the vendor, the external team who's going to help us. So those contractors that I mentioned, starting to lock in our vendors. So our transportation, any outside events that we might do. So getting those teams locked in. It's really important, to have consistency year over year with the teams that we're using, as they know our problem, like our program, any issues or challenges that we face throughout the event, they are aware of it. So having them work on it the second or third year is a huge advantage for us. So really our next step is starting to get those all locked in. Then having a really close look at the agenda and how that's going to shape out, because once we have that is when we can kind of go into those more details of AV and setups and all of that. We have a certain lead time that we need to keep on track with, because we have to lock in rates at a certain date. We have to get those items secured, and we're locking in so many different items that if anything has to come from outside of what they have in-house, they're able to rent that. And then, as we start getting closer, we'll, send invites out to external speakers, getting those contracted, and then really fitting that in. And that is what makes the agenda really take shape. So those are the big milestones, I would say, is the contract, the vendors, then working on that schedule. And that schedule, then as soon as we get that, it really starts setting different milestones for areas that we have to hit. And I work in a huge Google document, like just a Google sheet, and we have a timeline of dates and assignments of who's responsible for each of those areas.
Okay. All right, that was going to be my next question. Besides that spreadsheet, do you have any particular project management methodology or even software that you use to organize all this?
Yeah, so in terms of like internally, we use Slack, and we used WordPress.com, our internal P2s, which are just internal blog posts. That's how we really keep everyone at the company informed on what's going on and updates and any, things that people need to be working on. We'll use CrowdSignal to do a survey. So we send out a couple of surveys throughout the year. One, getting an idea on the programming and classes that people want to take and or teach. And they're like preferences surveys. So basic things that we need to get from people, like dietary restrictions and, rooming preferences, things like that. Then we'll also use Asana for a few projects. So with our creative team, that's how they like to work. So we'll use Asana to keep track of our creative tasks and with deadlines, because those do have hard deadlines when we're working with printers and getting things physically printed. A lot of Google Sheets and a lot of organizing in Google Drive of different documents. And especially since so many of us are in there working on it, it's just something easy for us. We're able to add a great amount of detail there. So those are I would say, the biggest tools that I use currently.
Great. That's awesome. And the methodology of organizing all this is just your own experience year after year and just streamlining the process. You don't use it necessarily like a out of the box methodology, right?
Not at the moment.
Right. That's good. I mean, I think that's actually the best way to do this. Because, especially because it's something that gets repeated every year. So there's a lot of lessons learned. By the way, do you do any post-mortem lessons learned kind of meeting?
Yeah, so afterward, we'll do it with the hotel, and then the core team that's working on it, we'll do a call afterward of wins, learns, and I guess losses, for lack of a better
challenges,
word. Yeah. So just some things that are okay, we shouldn't do this again. Some things are this went great. And some things okay, we did this fairly well. Maybe we missed the mark here or there. Or this was a challenge. And how do we fix it for next year? So, I think we did that over 2 calls, each 90 minutes, but really just digging into every area. And we do weekly calls ahead of time, and we break it out into sections with the owner of each area kind of owning that. So that's the same format that we use for that recap at the end, to just go through and make sure we're hitting every point. And we definitely take notes while we're on site as well, because at the end of the week, it seems like day one was a year ago, even though it was only 7 days ago.
Right.
So just, really keeping that top of mind so that we can take care of it afterward.
Cool. And this is not all that you do, right? Your team, right now you're helping with WordCamp US. So what else is your team in charge of wrangling? And what would you say, the percentage of your mental bandwidth of the GM compared to everything else? What would you say?
So I would say for the bandwidth of the GM, about the month or two before the GM, it takes about it takes a lot of my time. I would
Right.
say like 80 to 90% of my time.
Mm-hmm.
But the other times of the year, maybe like 30%.
Mm-hmm.
And it increases as we get closer to the event. But outside of that, we help manage the internal Automattic swag store. We do sponsorships, and so that's for WordPress.com, Jetpack, WooCommerce, WordPress.com VIP, and some other products as well. We'll also do, as you mentioned, we help with WordCamp US and Europe and just the WordPress community. We are a sponsor of that. So we're a global sponsor. And so they have events every weekend really around the world. So we have a team, someone on our team who is responsible for taking care of our activations at those. We help manage any like spaces that we have. So co-working spaces, things like that. And then just, and employee gifting. So
Yeah.
we keep busy.
Yeah.
We definitely are a team that, we're not afraid to roll up our sleeves and get things done on the ground, but we're also really thinking high level and strategically about our brands and, getting those in front of customers in like a really just thoughtful way and working with clients and partners as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also, aside from the GM, we do some division meetups that we've just started doing. So we have, 5 of those throughout the year, which are 100 plus people at each of those. So we keep busy.
Right. Yeah. I usually I volunteer and help when we sponsor a podcast movement conference,
Yeah.
and then I get to deal with you and your team, and it's always top notch. I mean, the stuff is always there on time, and everything is really well planned. And coming from a small business that I worked at before, whenever I had to go and work a booth at a conference, it was basically I had to do everything, just like pack the minivan and drive over
Yeah.
and then park around the back and use now I just show up there, everything is shipped. It's just, it's fun. You do fantastic work, you and your team, and I'm just so impressed.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. So let's say folks listening to this right now, they'd like to do like a corporate event like this. Or maybe they're considering going more the remote distributed model for employees, and they would like to maybe look into doing an event like this for folks who are remote. What would be like some tips that you would have for these folks listening right now?
Mm-hmm. I would say one, like at the outset, having the goals that you hope to accomplish from this, because while it's great to be together for a week without a concrete set of goals, like what are you working towards? So that's really helpful to have. I would say that making sure you have a great team to work with, because, y'all are working so closely together, and it becomes very time consuming toward the end and when you're on site. So making sure that you have a team there in place to support it and be able to, just really just like, no is never the answer. We're always like, okay, even if it is no, like how can we fix that, and just have like a can-do attitude. I would say at the end of the day, it's just important that, it's having everyone together and having that experience in a way that makes everyone comfortable. Knowing that you probably aren't always going to make everyone happy, but doing your best to, like deal with that as it comes up and work with people one-on-one to help come up with a solution. Because at the end of the day, when it's 800 plus people, it's hard to make every single person happy. And while you don't want anyone to, feel uncomfortable, just finding ways of compromise there. So just having that kind of mindset and attitude toward it, being able to just have those conversations and deal with things as they come up. And then just at the end of the day, like it's about this experience and having this great week. So like, don't sweat the small stuff. Like perfection, as much as we strive for it, it's not always possible. So just keeping that in mind, and having a team to help you and make all of those things happen is really important.
That's awesome. Well, it's pretty close to perfect, especially this past year. I think you're just kind of slowly getting there.
Thank you. I
Closer and
appreciate
closer.
that.
Yeah, it was very, very special. Great. Now, Megan, if people want to learn more about Automattic and the products and things that we do, where should they go?
Automattic.com. So automattic.com. And then if anyone wants to check out our GM, you can always find us with the hashtag A8CGM.
That's right. On Instagram and Twitter and all social media.
All the places.
And I'll have links to that. Do you have a personal blog?
Oh,
No.
I have one. It's partyof1.blog.
Okay.
But if I'm being honest, I'm not very caught up with it. But it's something I do strive to do. So maybe this will be the push that I need.
All right. So I will have links to automattic.com, the hashtag and the different social media platforms, and partyof1.blog for folks who want to check it out at pmfromthemasses.com/123 again for episode 123. Megan, thank you so much. This was fascinating.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for all the work that you do, and I'll see you in Slack.
Thank you for listening to the PM for the Masses podcast.
Tune in next week for more great ideas on how to manage your projects better and truly stand out in your industry.
PMforthemasses.com.